A nose lifts at the edge of the firelight. It's already found you, not by sight, not yet. By smell, by sound, by the simple fact that you stopped moving hours ago. This isn't a new story. It's one of the oldest ones our species has. Here's what makes this different from the usual scary animal video. Hyenas have a reputation as cowardly, mindless scavengers, comic relief in movies, background noise in documentaries. That reputation is almost entirely wrong, and it's wrong in a way that matters because the real version of this animal has been finding sleeping humans for millions of years, and in some parts of the world, it still does. So today, what actually happens when a hyena finds a sleeping human? We'll go through the fossil proof going back millions of years, the historical records, the real modern medical cases, and why almost everything pop culture taught you about this animal is backwards. Picture the version of a hyena most people carry around in their head, a skulking, giggling coward that steals from real predators and runs from anything that fights back. That image comes from decades of nature documentaries showing hyenas squabbling over lion leftovers at dawn. It is, almost point for point, the opposite of what scientists who've actually studied this animal for decades have found. In 2021, a research team examined Australopithecus fossils from Sterkfontein, one of the richest early human fossil sites on Earth, and found something that had never been directly confirmed before. Using detailed shape analysis and machine learning to compare bite mark patterns, they identified tooth marks from brown hyenas directly on the bones of our ancient relatives. This was the first direct evidence that hyenas weren't just present near early humans, they were biting into them. This fits into decades of earlier work. Researcher C.K. Brain spent years studying bone deposits across several South African sites: Swartkrans, Sterkfontein, Kromdraai, Makapansgat, Taung, and established that early hominins in this region were regularly hunted by large carnivores, not just occasionally unlucky. Leopards get most of the credit in that story, and rightly so. But hyenas were part of that same dangerous landscape. And unlike leopards, hyenas have jaws built specifically to crack open bone and reach the marrow inside, something almost no other predator on the savannah can do as efficiently. So if hyenas were already capable of this millions of years ago, why does modern pop culture treat them like a joke? Here's where decades of nature documentaries got it backwards. In the 1960s and 70s, zoologist Hans Kruk did something nobody had really done before. He watched hyenas at night, systematically, for years. What he found upended the popular narrative completely. When hyenas and lions were found sharing a carcass, the hyenas had made the kill themselves 53% of the time. Lions were stealing from hyenas more often than hyenas were stealing from lions. Later research across multiple parks found spotted hyenas make anywhere from 60 to 95% of their own kills, depending on the location. Their hunting success rate, around 30 to 40% per attempt, is actually higher than a lion's in several ecosystems, helped along by the fact that, relative to body size, spotted hyenas have the largest hearts of any African predator, giving them stamina that lions simply don't have. And their social structure isn't chaotic either. It's matriarchal, with inherited rank, and clans that can run up to 80 individuals working together. This is not a comic relief scavenger. This is one of the most capable predators in Africa, wearing a reputation it doesn't deserve. Now let's bring this into the historical record, because this isn't only an ancient fossil story. In 1908 and 1909, Theodore Roosevelt documented something specific during his time in Uganda: spotted hyenas regularly killing people suffering from African sleeping sickness as they lay sleeping outside in camps, too weakened by illness to defend themselves. A few years earlier, in 1903, a report from the Angoniland district, near the modern border of Malawi and Mozambique, described spotted hyenas waiting at dawn directly outside people's huts, ready to attack the moment the door opened. And this pattern wasn't limited to Africa. In the 1880s, a single hyena in Ida province, Turkey, was reported to have wounded 25 children and 3 adults over the course of 1 year, most of them attacked while sleeping. Decades later, in the 1930s and 40s, similar cases were recorded in Azerbaijan, where striped hyenas killed children sleeping in courtyards at night. This isn't only history, either. In 2012, a charitable surgical mission in rural eastern Ethiopia reviewed patients with facial injuries and found 4 separate hyena attack survivors, ranging in age from 5 to 50. Every single case had the same pattern. The victim was alone, vulnerable, outdoors, and it happened in the evening or at night. The very first lunge, every time, was aimed at the face. A separate hospital case series in Ethiopia recorded 11 hyena bite patients in a single year, and the most severe injuries, the ones with the highest mortality, happened to children. And as recently as a 2025 case report, a young man in Somalia herding camels was attacked by a hyena and suffered devastating facial and lower body trauma, requiring a multidisciplinary surgical team to treat. This is a documented, ongoing, real medical phenomenon, not folklore. So, why the face, specifically? Researchers studying these cases note it's simply the most exposed, least defended part of the body when someone is lying down, asleep, or too weak to react. An opportunistic predator with a bone-crushing bite goes for the target that offers the fastest access and the least resistance. And it's not indiscriminate. Across every case and every historical record, the same risk pattern shows up again and again. The victim was alone rather than in a group, outdoors rather than sheltered, and already vulnerable. A child, an elderly person, or someone weakened by illness. A hyena isn't randomly attacking anyone within reach. It's making the same kind of risk calculation any predator makes, and a sleeping, isolated, defenseless person is simply the easiest calculation there is. It's worth sitting with how socially sophisticated this animal actually is, because it changes the picture from mindless savage to something more unsettling, deliberate. Spotted hyena clans are run by females, rank is inherited from mother to daughter, and clans can include dozens of individuals coordinating together. This is an animal capable of patience, of waiting, of recognizing an opportunity, rather than simply reacting to hunger. The cackling idiot from cartoons is, if anything, one of the more socially complex predators in Africa. So if this animal is this capable, and the historical record goes back over a century in multiple countries, why isn't this happening constantly, everywhere right now? Because the same risk calculation logic that applies to lions and leopards applies here too. Researchers consistently identify the same conditions behind hyena attacks on humans: scarcity of natural prey, habituation to humans through unsecured food or garbage, an animal defending its young, or sickness and injury that's left the hyena unable to hunt its normal prey. Take away those specific conditions, and the healthy, cautious default behavior of a hyena is to avoid humans, the same inherited wariness other large predators show, likely shaped by the same long history of humans hunting back. Fire still works here too, the same near-universal deterrent effect that applies across almost every land predator. That's why the modern cases cluster so specifically. Rural regions like Malawi, Ethiopia, and Somalia, where people sometimes sleep outdoors. Resources are scarcer, and the buffer between human settlements and hyena territory is thinner. Let's be honest about exactly where the evidence stands, because this topic mixes several different kinds of proof. The 2021 fossil study gives us direct physical evidence that hyenas bit into early hominin bones millions of years ago. That part is about as solid as paleontological evidence gets, though it's still a recent finding that will be tested further by future research. What it doesn't prove is that any specific hominin was caught specifically while sleeping, as opposed to being scavenged after death or attacked during the day. That link is a reasonable inference, not a confirmed fact. The historical accounts, Roosevelt's account, the 1903 Angoniland report, the Turkish and Azerbaijani cases, are genuine historical records, but they come from an era before rigorous scientific documentation, so they should be treated as credible historical accounts rather than controlled data. The modern medical case studies are the strongest and most rigorously documented part of this story. But they still represent rare, geographically clustered events, not a typical daily risk most people anywhere in the world need to worry about, which makes the full picture worth sitting with. This isn't the same story as a big cat's raw physical power. It's a story about patience, about an animal with a bone-crushing bite, a complex social structure, and millions of years of documented opportunism, exploiting the single moment every human, in every era, has had no choice but to be at their most exposed: sleep. From a tooth mark on an Australopithecus bone millions of years ago, to a documented case in a hospital in Ethiopia in the last few years, it's the same basic vulnerability being tested by the same basic predator across an almost incomprehensible span of time. So the next time you hear that cackling laugh in a documentary and smile at how silly it sounds, remember, that's not the sound of a coward. That's the sound of one of the most patient, capable predators our ancestors ever had to share the dark with, and in a few corners of the world, still do.